Hello and welcome to this review for Black Unicorn by Tanith Lee. Not to be confused with The Black Unicorn by Terry Brooks, which I also have over there somewhere, but I haven't read recently. So, Black Unicorn is the first in a trilogy in the Unicorn series, a trilogy that are allegedly young adult. I'm dubious about that one. By Tanith Lee. The first one was Black Unicorn, published in 1994, though my lovely edition here is from 2002. I've got the one with the illustrations by Heather Cooper, which are quite stunning, and I'm quite happy with it. Black Unicorn was the first one. The second one, Gold Unicorn, I also have, and indeed have started already. And Red Unicorn was published in 1997. Now, while I have read Unicorn series books before, I've never before owned all three, and I know that at least one of them I've never read before. I might even be the Black Unicorn, because I haven't remembered it well through reading it. Anyhow, let's talk about my edition a little bit. It's an iBox, goodness knows. That cover illustration is also by Heather Cooper. Stunning illustration. Not too far removed from what happens inside the book. It's got interesting details, such as the way the mane and the hair of the unicorn are portrayed, and you've got that very red hair, which is a plot twist inside the novel. Let me read a little bit from the inside. It says that Tanith Lee is one of the leading writers of her generation. Born and raised in England, her elegant science fiction, fantasy, horror, mainstream and juvenile novels have earned her a huge following. And Heather Cooper is a Canadian artist, best known for her finely detailed paintings in mythic romantic themes. So the two are a natural marriage in this book, as well as the cover. We have got these lovely black and white illustrations at the beginning of some chapters. Part 1, you've got that very nicely done black and white of a fortress, which is where the story begins, with our main protagonist, Tanaquil, who is 15 at the time it starts. Now, it seems to me that a lot of people automatically assume that if your main protagonist or too many of your characters are teenager, that makes it a YA book. And I'm unconvinced by that, but it's not a hill I'm going to die on, so people keep insisting. I suppose this could arguably be a young adult book. In many ways, it doesn't overthink things. It's very much a mythic journey. But to me, it reads more like a myth or a fairy tale than it actually does like a young adult book. That's just my personal opinion. So here we've got the first thing Tanaquil saw almost every morning on waking up was her mother's face. But that was because a painting of Tanaquil's mother, the sorceress Jave, hung opposite the bed. The painting of Jave had a great bush of scarlet hair, in which various jewels, plants, implements, and mice and other small animals she used in her researches were caught. "Good morning, mother," said Tanaquil to the picture, and the picture vigorously answered, "Rise with the sun, salute the day," as it always did. Since it was anyway usually mid-morning when Tanaquil woke up, the greeting was completely unsuitable. And that sets a beautiful basis for many things. It tells us who Tanaquil is a little bit. She's sleeping till mid-morning. It tells us who her mother is, the sorceress Jave. Obviously slightly sideways from who Tanaquil is and what she's doing with her life, and a little bit about the sorceress from what you see from the portrait. And all of that carries through beautifully. So Tanaquil is 15, going on 16, and she's lived her whole life in this fortress. She knows nothing about the world outside. Her mother has never allowed her to travel and has taught her very little about it, except that it's surrounded by desert, and there is a city by the sea that she's talked about a few times. Tanaquil doesn't know who her father is. Her mother Jave refuses to discuss the matter. And her life is essentially meaningless and pointless. She lives in this fortress, but because the magic leaks from her mother's experiments, she never knows if a tap is going to produce water or sticky berry juice, as happens early on. These leaks affect all sorts of things. Tanaquil herself has been tested for sorcery, but has proved negative, much to her mother's despair. So her mother pretty much ignores her largely, unless Tanaquil goes marching up to her quarters, demanding breakfast or hot water as necessary. Instead, Tanaquil entertains herself by taking walks in the desert around the fortress, and her hobby is repairing things. She repairs a servant's child's doll, a servant's clock, some of the weapons belonging to the soldiers guarding the fortress. The fortress isn't bereft of life by any means, but Tanaquil doesn't really have any contemporaries. She tried, we later learn, playing with the children of the servants, but they were all determined to keep her in her place, which is the daughter of the mistress. So her life is essentially a bit boring, and despite that, Tanaquil has got to be one of the most engaging and likable heroines that Tanith Lee created, at least in her earlier fantasy. Her later fantasy adopted a similar theme in a way with the Claddy journals, of which I've also read one. Again, so you've got a main protagonist in a fortress in a desert area who goes out into the world, and this happens here. There are other themes that a Tanith Lee reader will recognise from other books, such as Biting the Sun, which was one of her science fiction ones. This one is not science fiction. Fantasy, absolutely. Young adult, I debate it, but whatever. Mythic, absolutely. High fantasy. Magic. And there's this unicorn. Where does the unicorn come in? Well, it comes in early. Tanaquil has entertained herself travelling in the deserts around the fortress a few times. On this particular occasion, she's going intentionally out into the desert. There's an animal which she calls a peeve. I'm never quite sure what it is. I imagine it kind of like a desert fox, because we hear pointed muzzle, but it climbs. That's not fox-like. I don't know. Basically, it's a mythic animal that is here for the purpose of this story. This particular peeve can talk a little bit and understand language, again, because the sorceress Jave is always doing these experiments, and the magic sort of leaks and spills over everything, changing the world around them. The peeve turns up in Tanaquil's bedroom with a bone. It's obsessed with finding bones. This particular bone, however, is not a meat bone. It is indeed a shining horn. And Tanaquil manages to get it to go back into the desert where it was found by suggesting that she can carry more bones and we can bring more bones back. And they slowly unearth the skeleton that isn't quite a horse and has this strange nubbin, and then it's the unicorn. Now, Tanaquil, with her talent for repairing things, takes the unicorn bones back to her room and uses ingenious mechanisms of wheels and copper wires to suspend it so that it's suspended in her room almost like it's alive. And then at one point it is. The unicorn materializes. It's a black unicorn. It comes rushing into her mother's dinner room during a party dinner. Tanaquil follows it off into the desert and out into the world, the peeve following as well. So one of the places she reaches is a oasis where she meets up with a caravan, and by fixing the wheel that is broken on one of the caravan-y things, carts, she manages to convince them to take her with them to the sea. And then she reaches the town by the sea, and she accidentally meets up with a girl who's the princess, the daughter of the prince of the city, and her name is something that I have temporarily forgotten, but it'll be written down here somewhere. There we go. Lizra. Lizra rescues her from a riot, and the actual story of how she's in a riot is a lot of fun. She gets to the city, but she doesn't have any money, So she sits in the marketplace fixing things, her one useful talent. The Artificers Guild sees her fixing things and goes, you can't do that unless you're a member of the guild, but you can't be a guild if you're a woman, so you've got to dress up as a boy, join the guild, become apprentice to a master artificer who can then take your work. And she's going sort of, I don't know that I really want to do that. The option, however, is taking a big swim in the bay, so she's there. She's a bit worried, and the black unicorn dashes in and saves her. It turns out that the black unicorn is actually the symbol of that city. Some think it's going to be the savior. Others think it's going to be the destroyer. And in the resulting kerfuffle, the artificers run out into the street. She runs after them. There's this huge riot, which is a lot of fun to read. Princess Lizra turns up and sort of plucks Tanaquil off the plinth where she's watching it. She and the Peeve are taking it up to the castle. And it's a little bit of a spoiler following, but not very much. Tanaquil keeps looking at Lizra going, where do I know her from? And eventually Lizra says to her, where do I know you from? And she says, well, I'm your sister. And it turns out that, yes, the Prince of the City must have been Tanaquil's father, and her mother, the sorceress Jeeve, just never mentioned it. The prince isn't a particularly nice guy. His daughter dislikes him. Tanaquil doesn't want to know him. The Peeve doesn't like him either. And you've got this fascinating and fantastical story. The descriptions are exceptional. I think that anything that Tanith Lee ever wrote is exceptional. Personally, that's my opinion. I don't know that she can write badly. But by the 90s, her fantasy was a lot more together than her earlier fantasies were. If you read The Birthgrave and you couldn't quite get into it, I would say still try the Unicorn series. The writing's much tighter. The protagonist is a lot more meaningful. Very light-heartedly tongue-in-cheek. Tanaquil's language and behavior is very contemporary in many ways, and it's very easy to enjoy her journey throughout this book. Now, one person describes it as a sly book, and I'd have to agree, because you've got all these themes that are set in it, but exceptionally so. Teenage girl rebelling against her mum could be seen. Runs off with a unicorn. Is that the biggest fantasy trope you've ever heard? But no, that is not how Tanith Lee is doing it. The unicorn isn't there accompanying Tanaquil as she goes through the desert. She's more going through the desert wondering if it's even real, or if she's imagined it. All the things that could be seen as tropes in this book, the way Tanith Lee does them, they are non-trope-like. They are always exceptional. They are often surprising. And it's intelligent, never talks down to you, and it's exceptionally creative. The unicorn is a mythic beast that has been done to death in dozens and dozens of books and themes, but it's never been done quite like this. The unicorn always remains slightly off-page, even when it's on-page. What is it doing? Eventually we realize there's that association between the black unicorn and Tanaquil, but what it is, Tanaquil never quite figures out. And how she came to fix the unicorn, she never figures that out either. Instead, at the end, a manifestation of her mother, the sorceress Jeeve, appears and explains to her the meaning of the black unicorn in her life and the meaning of her life as it relates to the black unicorn. Then we have this exceptionally good ending where Tanaquil uses this skill that she has for fixing things to find the thing that the black unicorn needs and enable it to complete its manifestation, as it were. So the ending is exceptional in that it opens the way for the other two books of the series, but it feels like an ending to that book. And I don't like books where I don't have a complete story arc. Here we have a complete story arc while still allowing room for the next one to start. So many good things. The Peeve as an accessory is probably one of the best animal sidekicks you can get. It's a step up from the animal sidekick that you get in Biting the Sun and Traveller Don't Bite the Sun and Drinking Sapphire Wine. This one is more verbal and more involved in Tanaquil's actual journey. However, it's completely and utterly does inappropriate things all the time, leading Tanaquil into trouble, which you must then solve. I want to mention something about the end, which is also a little bit of a spoiler. So, if my hand's up, it's going to be a spoiler. Don't listen. If you have this book and are about to read this, if you don't have this book, you should probably get this book. And if you haven't read it, you should absolutely read it. It's a fantastic book. One of the reasons I went onto this one is I've just read 3 exceptional female authors in a row. I read a short story by C.L. Moore, which I've posted a review for. That was a Vintage Season. Fantastic story by a fantastic author. I've also read A Judgment of Dragons by Phyllis Gottlieb, which I hope to be reviewing sometime in the next few days. And having read 2 such exceptional authors, I had to go on to an exceptional author. I couldn't go to one that was going to be in any way disappointing. And this has not in any way disappointed. So, spoilers. What the Black Unicorn requires from the world is to be allowed to go back into its own world. The Sorceress Jeeve talks a few times about the perfect worlds that exist. This world is just one in a whole series of worlds, some much worse, some much better. And the Black Unicorn comes from one of the good ones. Unicorns in general. Tanaquil figures out how to correct the broken gate that will let the unicorn go back. And she is about to let it go back and not do anything about it, just having had a glimpse into this perfect world, when the peeve runs through and she follows. And in this perfect world, they are the only non-perfect things, and they are destroying it. So she flees back to the gate, back to our world, hoping that the perfect world that the unicorn belongs to, will recover. Now, one of the people that I've seen their review, the only thing they didn't like about book was the religious overtones of this perfect world. That didn't bother me. I didn't see them that way at all. I didn't see this as being Judeo-Christian or really in any way actually religious. I saw it as mythic. In terms of a mythic book, this is a fantastic mythic book. It has got all the elements of true mythology. You've got the likable protagonist who's on a hero's journey or a child to adult type journey. You've got the accompanying sidekick, which is the peeve, the semi-talking animal, and you've got this goal, this lodestone star growing ahead of the protagonist, which is the unicorn itself. You've got finding your family, but then going off to find your own self. It's a wonderful book. It's not the longest book. I believe this is called a B format rather than what I think of as a normal format paperback. And it's 138 pages long. It didn't take me long to read. It mostly didn't take me long to read because it was so easy to refuse to do anything but read. This is the book that you can't put down, and that when you're not reading it, you are wishing that it's already time to get to the book that you can read. I put off a whole lot of other things in my life that I should probably have been doing because this was all I wanted to be doing. Okay, so throughout are scattered these beautiful black and white illustrations that I mentioned. Did I also mention that it's actually dedicated to Louise Cooper, who is also a writer of mythic fiction, crossover fantasy fiction? This one. Have I shown you this one already? I can't remember. Isn't it beautiful? Even if I have, it's worth looking at again. Amazing black and white picture there by Heather Cooper, who may or may not, probably not, be a relationship of Louise Cooper. And here we've got a double spread of one of the processions that happen in the city of the Princess Lizra and the prince whose name I haven't bothered to remember. This book is, have I mentioned when this book is? I might not have. I might have mentioned that in one of the off-cut videos that I was forced to discontinue. So Black Unicorn came out in 1994, and then Gold Unicorn came out in 1994 as well, and then we had to wait for the concluding one, Red Unicorn, 1997. I am delighted to finally have all three and be able to read them in sequence, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. This book concludes, which came out in 2002, concludes that Tanith Lee is one of the leading writers of her generation. Born and raised in England, her elegant science fiction, fantasy, horror, mainstream and juvenile novels and short stories have earned her a large following. Where Heather Cooper is a Canadian artist, best known for her finely detailed paintings in mythic romantic themes. Together, they have produced a truly beautiful and amazing to read book. Thank you for watching. I'm going straight onto the Gold Unicorn, and it's a bit heftier a book. It might take me a bit longer, but there will be a review for that following. So, you know what you should do. You should go away and read good books, and by all means read Tanith Lee. I feel like in the upcoming month there's going to be a lot of Tanith Lee in my life, and that makes me very happy. Join me in enjoying Tanith Lee and read good books.